Peace, people. Welcome to the latest episode of the Rough Draft. I am your host, Kevin Alberto Sabio, and in this latest edition of the Rough Draft, I would like to talk to you about the effect that the pandemic is having on independent bookstores and businesses alike. So it is now about May. Been in self quarantine for about almost 2 months now. This is having a kind of a dire effect on a lot of different businesses that we know about locally and across the country. So, especially for those of us who are independent artists, it's having an even double toll on us because we're not able to go out and interact with people, go to different events and whatnot, like book fairs and writing festivals, comic cons, things like that, conferences. And for those of us who are independent, it's having a really hard effect on our bottom line, but especially for those that are like black bookstores. Um, because especially for bookstores, even in our communities, they've been getting whacked because people weren't able to go out, they're not able to congregate, and especially with some of our businesses, like they are not able to offer online services. And specifically speaking about black bookstores, I mean, they've been getting hammered for the last 15, 20 years. I mean, they've been closing at alarming rates, whereas we used to have hundreds of bookstores across the country. So they've been dwindled down to like a handful, literally by by the mid 2000s. It's just like we went from having many bookstores in our black bookstores in our communities to like almost none. And a lot that had a lot to do with just the multiple things. The rise of Amazon. You had the big box stores. They kind of wiped out a lot of independent black bookstores, and then also you had gentrification happening in our communities. And so it's like the rising rents. They caused a lot of our bookstores to close down, and a lot of these black bookstores, they were staples of our community, and that really hurt that we ended up losing them, and that we were able to use them as staples of our community anymore. You know, it was a way for a lot of independent artists to actually be put on and have their books stocked over there, and they could actually get their start of their career. Within the last, I'd say 3 to 5 years, you actually saw a little bit of resurgence of indie bookstores, and so they were kind of hybrid businesses. So not only were they bookstores, they were also like coffee shops as well. So it was a bookstores and cafes, things of that nature. Or they had to really diversify their inventory. So not just selling books or even just nonfiction books, they had to do nonfiction, fiction, and some other stuff as well. And at least with this independence movement of indie bookstores, this rise of indie bookstores, like I said, within the last 3 to 5 years, you kind of saw black bookstores making a comeback because like I said, they would be reincarnated as bookstores and cafes or bookstores and coffee shops. um and you kind of saw that with certain ones that I know that are out here, where now I'm in the Delaware and Philadelphia regions. So you had places like what Harriet's Bookshop and Uncle Bobby's and Amalgam, for to say a comic book shop. So they were able to come out and say kind of burst on the scene and be able to open their doors and represent for our community. Like now with this pandemic, a lot of them are closing down. So it's like they're suffering right now because lack of business. People aren't able to go in and buy their products that they have, whatever books that they were supposed to be having on their shelves. They've had to cancel events, so people who were supposed to be having like book signings or something or lectures, they're not able to come in. So that's another thing that's affecting them. Um, so they're not getting the foot traffic in, and from what I know, a number of them they do not distribute digital versions of a lot of their inventory. So that's having a major impact. Um, I think that for our businesses, who knows when this pandemic will be over and when the business will get back to normal? Will these businesses be able to survive? That's one of the major issues, one of the major concerns that I have, especially you say with working with the Universal Africana Literary Arts Movement. We do include black bookstores, you say, amongst our members, and so we really need to find ways to keep these businesses open. And it's not just for us who are like published authors and poets and whatnot. It's also, like I've said, they're staples of the community. They're gathering places. They're institutions, really. They're not just businesses, they're institutions. Say like some of the greatest minds of our community and of our generations, several generations have actually come out of these places. They've had their works stocked in these places, and they're the only places where you can get them. And especially, again, for independent artists, they say self-published authors and whatnot. These black bookstores in the black community are the only places where we will have our works seen and bought, and where we could actually go and talk about them, whether having lectures or readings and book signings and things of that nature. So I just really hope that we can come out and support our communities and support the local bookstores and help them to keep their doors open. I mean, I know there's the rise of this company called bookshop.org, where they would help a lot of these businesses who, these indie bookstores, be able to distribute digital versions of a lot of their inventory, depending on what they have. Because I don't know like a lot of these businesses personally or that much about bookshop.org. I'm still doing my own research on that. I just know that it started sometime this year. I think February, I think it was, that bookshop.org launched. So it's an opportunity. They might be able to. They're very amenable to indie bookstores. I know that, but as far as their other services, I couldn't really go into detail about that. I'd have to do more research, but it's bookshop.org is an option for our indie bookstores. So hopefully that could be a resource for them. Other than that, we would need to find some way to do some sort of fundraising to help keep their doors open. Because again, like I said, these are resources that we need for our community. So thank you very much for listening to me for this latest episode of the Rough Draft. Um, I just really hope that everybody makes it through this, I should say, on the good side of it. So thank you very much for listening to this. If you're watching this on YouTube, definitely please leave a comment, subscribe, share if you can. So hopefully I'll see you next time in the next episode of the Rough Draft. So definitely always on my literary grind. Keep the fist raised, and I'll see you next time. Peace.